Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With us today, we have Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you this morning.
Good morning, Dr. Paul. How are you this morning?
Doing fine, thank
Yeah,
you. Doing
yeah.
well. Wanted to start off with talking about something that I couldn't believe it, but it to me is interesting. It's sort of funny, and yet it's tragic, and yet it really teaches a lot of people a lesson. And that has to do with these pardons
Yeah.
that these, and that was a pretty generous, as I recall. Biden wasn't bashful about passing out.
No.
Most presidents, so over the years, a lot of presidents used it sparingly, but in later years, they've been using them in larger numbers. I guess that's the more disobedience our governments get involved in. But anyway, the pardons came up and they passed, and it's been several months now. But first news I heard was yesterday that all of a sudden the pardons are illegal. What? What do you mean? How could they be illegal? And but Biden never signed them. He used a machine to do it, so it was an auto signature, and that's supposed to be a no-no. That really raises questions. So I find it rather ironic that this comes up, and maybe this is a climactic final nail in the coffin, the end of the Biden administration, when they realized that they were doing things. What else occurred under his signature?
Yeah.
Who knows? Because I don't think his health was all that good, the last year or two. So it is amazing that all those pardons may be illegal. I'm anxious to see how this irons out, because it's hard to believe. They say there were some legitimate pardons in it. There might have been one or two that might have been really legitimate. He said, boy, thank goodness he gave a pardon.
Yeah.
Does that guy or woman lose their pardon? How does that happen? I guess if it's, well, who knows? Because I don't think this has come up before, but it's sort of a verifying, how clumsy things are in Washington. Who knows? This might have happened before, but it was discovered. So whoever it was in the Justice Department of who found this, I think needs a pat on the back, because it really, if nothing else, it's an item that can go down in the history books as being one of the most absurd things you ever heard of, where the president, I forgot to sign the pardons.
Yeah. It's an interesting question about technology. Obviously, the framers of the Constitution couldn't have anticipated that we would have machines to sign these. Now, the first president who ever used an auto sign to sign a law was President Obama. And from what I understand, that was an extension of the Patriot Act. So maybe that'll be void too. But no, apparently, from what I read, and I don't know, I was looking through Jonathan Turley to see if he had a remark about it, and I didn't see anything. So I'm waiting to hear the definitive, in my opinion, view of it. But apparently, from what I've read, administrative things can be signed by an auto sign, which I guess the extension of the Patriot Act would be considered administrative. But pardons themselves need a wet signature, and I have someone who said that I'm going to put up. They call it wet signature. But it does raise a lot of questions about this. But the other thing, and I think the larger implication, even if specifically in a very narrow sense, they're not going to get away with canceling the pardons, and somewhere Fauci's breathing a sigh of relief if that happens. Nevertheless, it raises the issue, I think, and you alluded to it in your opener, Dr. Paul, how much of Biden's presidency was incapable of understanding. And that's a really big issue, constitutional issue. What if there was someone in office who really wasn't in office? I mean, he didn't know anything that they were doing.
Yeah, I for some reason, historically, this may not get a lot of attention right now, but it will eventually. But maybe a person like Jonathan Turley, they might just take a bite and give us their opinion on it. But it just sort of happened. I just heard about it, yesterday afternoon. It was a weekend, so maybe we'll hear somebody else talking about it and what it really symbolizes. Where we are in the politics of issuing pardons and running governments, and the longer things go on, the more you get. That's one thing that's good about the investigation now on the inefficiencies of government. All these things are popping up. And there for a while, there was so much stuff on USAID, and thinking, oh boy, this is a ton of stuff. But that's just a little bit.
Yeah.
Once they find it, but people now are concerned. Yes, the attention was drawn to some of these announcements, but will there be a follow through? Will the inefficiencies be pointed out not have any any change in our bottom line in the budget? And that's the question that Thomas Massey's been asking, and it doesn't look too good.
Yeah, well, someone else who noticed the auto signature thing was none other than President Trump. Now, go to that first clip. This is how Al Hedge wrote it up. He put something on his Truth Social about it. Trump declares Biden's autopen signed pardons void. And this did come out. I saw it a week or so ago on the Heritage Foundation's oversight project. They're the ones who disclosed that it looked like every single document President Biden signed, except for one, was literally identical, questioning whether he actually signed them and whether they could be deemed as valid. So President Trump noticed it. And if you go to the next one, here's what he had to write in his own endearing way of writing. The pardons that Sleepy Joe Biden gave the unselect committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect because of the fact that they were done by autopen, he continued. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them. That's an interesting point. The necessary pardoning documents were not explained to or approved by Biden. He knew nothing about them, and the people that did may have committed a crime. Interesting. He then wanted to say that they are subject to full investigations.
You wonder how the process worked. Did they have a secret committee of 10 people? Well, send in your recommendation, or did one person have the control and the ability to approve this and go ahead with it? Somebody had to make the decisions.
I mean, he spent a lot of time in Delaware. That's fine. I wish they'd spend all their time on vacation. But nevertheless, if he was in Delaware on a beach somewhere, and maybe Blinken or someone back home was thinking, we got to get something done here, and they're running that machine, how do they know that he had the express authority of the president to do anything like this? It raises this huge question, I think. Even if it's just a tempest in a teapot, it might be just sort of a right-wing blow-up or whatever. Nevertheless, it does, raise some questions in the future. Now, here's a funny thing that Trump posted about it. If you go to that next one, they're the presidential portraits. There's the first one, President Trump's first term, and the next one is an auto pen as Biden's presidency, and then back to President Trump. Now, here's an interesting aside, Dr. Paul. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, he was talking about the apparent mental decline of Biden. If you put this next one on, this tends to bolster that idea. So Joe Rogan was asking Joe Rogan says, Speaker Mike Johnson waited almost a year to meet Biden. When he finally did, he asked him, why did you pause the LNG reports? Mike Johnson, he looks at me stunned and says, I didn't do that. Joe Rogan, so Johnson has the secretary print the executive order. Biden had never read it. Mike Johnson, he wasn't lying to me. He genuinely didn't know what he had signed. If accurate, very concerning. He genuinely didn't know what he had signed.
See, the size of government is so bad and so dangerous to us, but eventually it might be our tip-off that we better get things under control. And there's a lot of people in this country, but the people resisting that, pretty powerful messages are out there, and they know how to stir up emotions. So we have a long way to go. But you first have to plant these seeds and expose and get the information out to get the people excited. But it's going to be hard to reverse it. And, I got to thinking, why would that be? They cleaned out USAID. It isn't all cleared up. But evidently, they're every place. That's why I don't like tinkering.
Yeah.
Well, we have a bad program here. Now, it looks like USAID might be, eliminated. But if you get rid of 30% or 50%, if they end up and say, well, we took these 10 programs and we reduced them all by 32%, the seeds of destruction are still there. The process is there, and somebody will just rebuild it, because they went back and quoted several presidents who were waste, fraud, and abuse. They were all for that. They ran on that,
Yeah.
but nothing happened. This one, it looks like more will happen. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to wait and see what the budget shows.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to something that a little bit more, it's serious in a way, I guess. I don't know, life and death serious. But if you skip one and go to the Pentagon, says operations continue overnight against Yemen's Houthis. Now, this happened over the weekend. President Trump decided that it's a good time to start bombing Yemen. And you touched on this in your column that just came out this morning. You know, they didn't attack us. They didn't do anything to us. But he said he's going to bomb them. He bombed them for, I don't know, someone said 10 hours. What's interesting, though, again, as I said, they did not attack the United States. They had not planned on attacking the United States. But nevertheless, he bombed them anyway, saying that Biden was too weak, and so he's going to show strength. But here's what's interesting. If you, and I messed this up, if we can go to that second video clip. Now, Liam McCollum, as you remember, he's doing a lot of great work. He was one of our Ron Paul scholars, and he picked up this gem. This is when, and you mentioned this too in your column, this is one when President Trump was candidate Trump, and he's complaining about, you might want to get your earpiece, he's complaining about Biden being too much of a warmonger. You just pick up the phone and listen to what he says here. I can't hear the sound. Do you hear it?
I don't hear any.
We're not getting any sound?
Not on that one.
Okay, well, anyway, what the president said is, why is Biden just bombing? Are you hear it now?
You can sell problem. I look at your policies, I see secure the borders, bring jobs
Right.
back. I look at the Democrats and many Republicans, and it's foreign war and foreign expansion.
That's right.
What is that?
I think it's just a failed mentality. It's crazy. You can sell problems over a telephone. Instead, they start dropping bombs. I see recently they're dropping bombs all over Yemen. You don't have to do that. You can talk in such a way where they respect you and they listen to you. Viktor Orban of Hungary, you know, the leader, they call him a
You
strong.
can cut that one now. That's enough. So here's as a candidate, we don't need you dropping bombs. We can pick up the phone. And now he goes ahead and starts dropping some bombs.
You know, when we were looking for an item of optimism, we would say, well, we'll give him a pass to the first go around. He didn't know that much about running the presidency, and he hired a couple people that weren't really his friends,
Yeah.
and they were doing things behind his back. But he's had a lot of time. 4
Yeah.
years as president and 4 years now, and then he makes the statements. The statements are good. But we're still doing the same thing, and it's. I think it's obviously the case of serving certain special interests
Yeah.
in foreign policy that causes this to happen. Because it doesn't happen just for anybody, you know. But Yemen and Israel and Iran, that's a mixed bag. It's a mess, and but. That we could use Trump's statement.
Yeah.
Well, we could sell it by telephone, but I'd make sure it's long distance and they were paying the bill.
Yeah. Well, the whole origin of this, of course, is the Israeli slaughter of Palestinians in Gaza. At least 50,000 have been killed, most of them women and children. And Yemen said, well, we're not going to stand for it. We're not going to let Israeli ships pass. And so the United States, instead of saying, you guys need to cool it down a little bit, they said, oh, have some more weapons, have some more money to buy weapons and kill more kids. And so Yemen decided that they would interdict Israeli ships. So the U.S. put themselves in the middle of it, doing the bidding of Israel, really. And that's how we got to the situation. But, you know, a lot of people are saying now, and I had a lot of people respond to something I posted on X over the weekend, well, we have to protect the shipping lanes. Don't they realize? Well, first of all, Yemen is not attacking anybody but Israel. But now that we started bombing them, they said, we're going to attack you too. Well, that's understandable. But Thomas Massey, always the coolest head in the class, he went and did a little bit of research. And if you skip ahead to that next one, they say these are crucial shipping lanes. Well, Massey looked at it and he said, expressed in billions of dollars, the 5 countries and 5 corporations that will benefit most from U.S. military activity to eliminate shipping disruptions caused by the Houthis near the Red Sea. China is number 1. U.S. isn't even in the top 5. So these are the countries that benefit from the U.S. clearing out the Red Sea. So basically, we're doing the heavy lifting, not only for 5 foreign countries, but for 5 foreign corporations. Good find on Massey's part. And if you go to the next one, here's how he explains it too. He said, regarding U.S. activity in Yemen, I recently said to watch out for a new military engagement to compensate for the pullback in Ukraine. The military-industrial complex demands about $50 billion a year from our government, above and beyond what's necessary to defend our country. So 1-2 punch from Thomas Massey on this, I think.
Boy, that's for sure. Good for him. Good for him to be our watchdog there, but we need a lot more. And the opportunity is there. People are sick and tired of it, but it's not coming. The opposition is not coming together. That's why, in many ways, on economic policy, I don't, you could think of all these things, cut the spending and balance the budget and don't have new programs and all this. But I work on the assumption, without any proof of it, but I believe that it all has to end. There is a liquidation period. You can't continue to print money. You can't continue to run up these deficits and get involved. And eventually it ends. And you can, but if you don't do it in an orderly manner, it ends. It ends with a collision, in a real bad thing like a Zimbabwe or something.
Yeah. Well, the real danger with Trump, and you alluded to it earlier, he surrounded himself with people who are not that much different than the John Boltons and Mike Pompeos of his previous administration. These people are neocons. Mike Waltz is a neocon. Marco Rubio is a neocon, essentially. They're all, so he's not getting anyone saying to him, I know that Waltz is telling you that you should really be attacking Iran. However, here's some information, Mr. President. He needs someone like a McGregor in there. Look, you can't do this because of this. He actually would need someone like a Danny Davis, but Danny Davis was recently denied the appointment to the Deputy Director of National Intelligence because he had written some things about what was going on in Gaza that I guess the administration can't stand. But here's the real thing, Dr. Paul. This is only partly about Yemen. Mike Waltz clearly wants us to go to war with Iran for the benefit of Israel, of course. So here's what he said. Yemen is only a part of it. If you go to that next clip from DD Geopolitics, U.S. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, this is over the weekend, the next campaign in Yemen may target Iranian ships anchored off the Yemeni coast or Iranian military officers training Ansar Allah. So that's a clear threat to start shooting out Iranian ships. Now, the Iranians, this is not Grenada. They've got some very sophisticated weapons, and we have a lot of vulnerable troops in the region. So I don't know what they're cooking up over there at the White House, but it doesn't look good.
And then it wouldn't take too much speculation or thought about what could happen. Could it expand? If it got bad enough there, would China do more to get involved? Would Russia to get more in it? Maybe even India might get more involved. We don't know. But it's not going to be a simple, well, we're going to stop this ship. It's very dangerous. Sometimes I wonder about people's basic beliefs and convictions. And if I had to write down and say, I watch politics a lot, and I've watched Trump for a long time, and I know Trump, and I know his position, so I'm going to write a paper explaining his foreign policy. You know what I would do? I would call I would call you.
No.
Tell me what I'm supposed to write, because I don't know what it is. And yet, we try to give a hint on that. We mention the things when even in this today. He said he had a great statement.
Yeah.
But the discouraging thing is he doesn't follow through with that. The policy's not the same, and you always emphasize the advisors you have around you makes a big difference.
And people might say, "Oh, you just hate Trump." No, the opposite is true. We want him to have a successful presidency. The way to have a successful presidency is to not start wars. He got it as candidate. I hope he doesn't forget it as president.
That's it.
Well, I'm going to close out now and thank everyone for being with us. Reminding you that this is the last week. The conference is on Saturday, less than a week away. Dr. Paul, I don't know if you're prepared. I don't know if I'm prepared, but nevertheless, I will put a link in here. We have a few tickets left. So if you want to come down to sunny Lake Jackson, I did look at the weather, Dr. Paul. It's going to be clear and in the low 70s.
Oh,
If that holds, it's going to be a beautiful day down here on the Gulf Coast, or the coast of America, what do they call it? Gulf of America. So anyway, we'd love to see if you can make it out. Over to you, Dr. Paul.
very good. I'm looking forward to it because I think when people come, I expect everybody to have a good time. And right now, the weather's good. Things are relatively calm politically, but all the things that we talk about have potential great problems ahead. And when we talk about Yemen, I mean, 5 years ago, I didn't even care that much about reading about it, and now look at it. It might be one of the biggest potential threats we have. And if something breaks like that during our conference, I'm sure if we are there, we will be talking about it and speculating what's going on. But we are looking forward to our conference, and we hope to see many of you there. I do want to thank you all very much for the support you give the Campaign for Liberty, and hopefully you'll return to the Campaign for Liberty and soon. Thank you.